Hi, my name is Richard Mendoza III. This is my presentation. I'm a communications major from San Diego Christian College, and I decided for my presentation I would argue the use of board games as a communication art. First of all, if you have access, please go to the PowerPoint and you can follow along during my presentation and help keep the thoughts organized as you're following along. A little bit about me. When it comes to board games, I've been playing board games ever since I was a little kid. My dad used to even sneak me out of bed to play games like Risk. And so board games are something that I've had throughout my life. And recently I spend about twice, one or two times a week playing board games of different types. And for clarification, a board game is typically anything that uses a set of rules and that can be played in a game. Uh, so there are a lot of different types of board games, and the majority of board games and tabletop games is the other term, that use different game components, such as little models or dice, like I have here, and even something simple as just paper. Right? Board games can use all different types of materials, but the idea is being able to sit down, or even in some cases you can stand up, but being able to interact with other people and using your components to present or to play together competitively for fun. There's a lot of different things that go behind a board game. So for me, um, I've been playing board games for a very long time. I play in different tournaments, mainly game like card game tournaments, and I play. There are different types of tabletop games where you have whole armies of little plastic models, and you roll dice and you use tape measures to move them on the board, and we play tournaments like that where it simulates like a real life battle. So there are a lot of different types of games, things, even the simple house games that many people are familiar with, such as Monopoly or Life or Clue or even Uno. All those games fall under the term of tabletop and board games. And so that's what I'm going to be focusing on with this project. And like I was saying, the intention of my project is to try and argue that communications and board games can work together, that board games are an art form in many different ways. They can be used for both entertainment, social, and learning reasons. And so that's what all my research has been focused on and what my project is geared towards. For my research, I decided to focus on new gamers and veteran gamers from ages 18 to 30. This allowed me to be able to have a clear perspective on who I was researching, and then also was an age bracket that I was more familiar with. So I would have an easier time finding people of those groups and being able to both research from them, but then also being able to market a game towards them, because my project actually had basically three different parts. So the first part was the written part, which focused on research from an online survey, where I had these people take those surveys. But then I also had a physical part where I had different test groups, 17 different participants, play different board games and test them out, along with having them fill out their own survey, both before, after, and during their test sessions, so that I could gauge how they felt during the sessions, how they felt before and after, and see the contrast between it, which was pretty interesting, and I'll explain more about that later. Basically, I had those, and then on top of that, I created my own board game. That way, I could show the results of my research through something physical to kind of represent what I was going for in terms of showing board games as a communicative art. And so I'll go more into that in depth as we're going throughout this presentation. So, as I was saying, board games could be used for both entertainment, social development, and learning as a learning tool. Entertainment is the obvious perspective of what board games are. When people want to have fun or want to compete or meet with other people, what they do is they can pull out a board game, they can pull out card game, dice, and just sit, talk, interact, and play these games. But on top of that, there is the ability for social development, which seems prevalent, is very prevalent, and not always thought about. In order to play games with someone else, you have to be able to sit there and communicate. Everyone needs to know the same rules, so there's rule books. But so there's that social dynamic of having to explain these rules to other people, which also pours into the learning tool. So now everyone's learning the rules, speaking with each other, learning how to play the game, and in many cases competing against each other. And that can lend itself to both fun dynamics of friendship, banter, just working together, or even on the other side, more competitive, aggressive natures where there can even be insults or frustrations. But the dynamic of social interaction is there and very prevalent in board games, even for people who find themselves more introverted and people who find themselves extroverted. This outlet is something where people don't necessarily have to directly interact with each other, but through interacting through the game, they can create those bonds and friendships that they may not have normally did if they tried just having a normal conversation. And that's not to say that having normal conversations is bad or should be taken out of the equation. Um, but the board game itself is an interesting median for how people can come and interact with each other. And then, like I was saying, the learning tool aspect of it is there. Every game can use aspects of math, of English. English is a very prevalent part of board games. How grammar is worded, how rules are presented, can affect how you play the game. Game rules are almost all math and English. But then on top of that, there's different games that focus on history, such as like games like Risk or Diplomacy, where the idea is you have the globe and it's in a time point of history, and you try to kind of recreate history through that. So all these different aspects, like I was saying, are very prevalent throughout it. But I went into more research just to kind of show how that how this can all how this is all more evidential as opposed to just my own saying. So first of all, this is how we go into the project. So for the project, I had to schedule different things. I had to schedule my time. I had to schedule who was going to be there, what I needed, where I was going to go for the research, and then also my audience. So for my schedule, I had to plan out that I would, over the course of the weeks, which was already spread out across 15 different weeks for this project, for the capstone. So first I had to schedule time for myself to put together the components of my game, and then also decide what games I wanted, and then decide a time period for the questionnaires, which once again there were two different questionnaires, one that was online and then one that was a physical copy for the test groups to take. And so I had all those aspects figured out. I had to contact test groups and did testing and research over the course of 2 weeks, where I had over 38 people or 38 people come online to take my surveys, and then 17 people take physical surveys in person, 7 of which took those surveys multiple times, because those 17 people were the test groups, the people who actually played the games with me, that I could research, observe, and then also present my own game to and get feedback on that, and which all kind of work together in that synergy, that cycle. So once I had all those things researched, or all those things gathered, I also had the location, which was mostly at Game Empire, which is a local game store. There's actually many game stores throughout San Diego and across America and over the world, where people will go and meet just to play games, to have tournaments, to just to have fun. These are social aspects, social sites that people could go to, similar to how people would go golfing or bowling, or how they might go to a baseball game, or even stay home and watch a movie. These are these or go to the movie theaters. This is a place where people can go and interact with each other on their own, through their own accord, which is a very interesting, just kind of hangout or environment for gamers and even new people who don't know much about games to come and enjoy the aspect of what board games can be. And so I had all those things done, and once again, my research was new and veteran gamers between the ages of 18 to 30. The reason why I specified both new and veteran is because I wanted to show how I wanted to figure out if there was a gap between these kinds of players, people who've been playing games for a while, and people who either didn't know much about them or only play casually whenever they felt like it or could. I wanted to see if these people could also interact with each other, because I think that's an important aspect of the social development side of it, where to show how games can bring those people together. And so what I did is I took my survey online, and I had several different questions go on there. And then I set up 4 different test groups, and then I started to create my board game. So I had participants make sure that they sign their release form so that they can participate and I can use the research. And so some of the highlights that I noticed from the online portion of the survey of this project were the following. So one of the first questions I asked them on the online survey, which was done through SurveyMonkey, was what was their relationship with board games? What was their familiarity with them? How often did they play, pretty much? And I found it very interesting that there was actually a wide diversity in out of these test takers, of which all the participants were found across Facebook and different social media aspects. Many people I did not know, and some people I did, just found in different circles to try and take this test. And the diversity was very, very great. There were 7 people appreciated games but rarely played them. But then you even had all the way up to 12 people played games competitively and very frequently. However, no one considered themselves very competitive, and no one considered themselves that games were a daily part of their life, which was very interesting. I did notice that there was a big difference. It was 5 different people. Almost 20% or 13% were more competitive than completely new to games, but which was good to know for the research, for the sake of their familiarity when it came to their questions, of which I asked more how many games did people play. No one said that they played more than 5 games, and actually more than 80% of the people I asked to participate in the survey said that they only played 0 to 2 games a week, which left a very small, less than 20% played between 3 and 5 games a week. And so even though there were many people who considered themselves to be very competitive, not many people played that many games. So it showed that it doesn't take playing many games to be very familiar with them. Even like for myself, I would consider myself very competitive, but I only play between a couple throughout the year. I also found that there was a wide diversity in the amount of time that participants would be willing to sit and play a game in a single sitting. And so I took that into account when it came to creating my own project. So now I was trying to create a game that would be open to many people who were both new and veteran players between the ages of 18 to 30, and then also a game that could be played in multiple different time lengths, because some people preferred to play 30 minutes. Some people could play 30 minutes to 2 hours, and it didn't matter to them as long as they were playing with their friends, which was specified in the research questions on SurveyMonkey. And so I took all this into account. Some other interesting facts too when it came to the online research is that 13 of the online surveyors said that games had no purpose beyond entertainment, whereas there was a stronger conviction of players in person, as we got to see their change from being less comfortable with playing with strangers to being more comfortable, which was really interesting. So here's an example of how the physical survey was. Right here, I had different questions. So I had a first play session, second play session, and a third play session. And so some participants were in multiple play sessions and some weren't. And I saw as through the different questions the differences in each perspective. It was very frequent that there were participants saying they were not comfortable playing with people they didn't know or didn't recognize people in the group. And by the end of it, every participant was comfortable, stated that they were comfortable playing with the group that they were and enjoyed the experience for the most part, which is very good. It's good to see that. And so we had that, and now we get into how I use that to create my own project. So for my game, I decided to make a competitive game, uh, a game that veterans and new players could also play together. So I created multiple different modes of the game or ways to play it. And this game is also takes aspects of different play lengths, and then also takes the aspect of creativity so that people can kind of create their own characters or their own way to play, and just sit in a circle and play together. So these are the basic aspects of it. It's competitive, multiplayer, focused, character creation, variable time lengths. It can be 3 to 6 players, so it can be anywhere from a small group of people to a decent sized friend group, and then replayable and like I said, available to new and veteran players. Um, Kind of the aspect of how this game could work is someone who's more familiar with the game can show their friends who are not as used to board games how to play these games, which creates, once again, that dynamic of relationship and allows that learning aspect where they're being challenged to do something new, but then also in a fun and exciting way with people that they might know or enjoy getting to know. And so the game itself looks kind of like this. This is what a standard character sheet might look like. So on it, we'd have the idea is it's an arena, okay, where you have your different characters fighting each other. So you would have the abilities and all the other aspects of the character, and then also different things like that. And then you'd have these cards that would work with them, and they would have different aspects to change up the character, the gameplay. Um, and then on top of that, you'd have little tokens. These could be used to represent different effects on the character. Um, and in order to play the game, you would use a set of dice. Though many people may be familiar with the standard die right here, which is in the gaming world considered a D6 or six-sided die. There are also many other different types of dice, and so this game would allow people to learn how to use those other types of dice, even though they may have never been exposed to them. So stuff like this, which is a four-sided die, or a D4, all the way up to this, which is a 20-sided die, or known as a D20, which is actually one of the most common dice to be used in a lot of these games, other than the D6. So this helps create or breaks down the barriers between new and veteran gamers as well. And I got to see that through the research as players who had never played any of these games that we were playing, or that they were playing, were able to have fun and learn the games and get into it and even declare their favorites, what favorite games they might have enjoyed. And so all these aspects of the project could be representative of that. And so my goal was to create a prototype board game that used the elements that people enjoyed and wanted to have in their board games, and then now have a final product that I can turn into that now I have this prototype, I can turn it into an actual product, and eventually maybe even create a board game for marketing purposes as well. So to wrap everything up, the research was very engaging, getting to hear a bunch of different aspects and perspectives that people had regarding board games and regarding entertainment and the value of art, and then also the diversity of these players, all different walks of life, wanting to play these games. And I found that in the end, the games were very strong for entertainment purposes. In the test groups, everyone, the majority of people, put down scores that were positive towards the presentation, and there was also there was a good strong social aspect as people were engaging with each other. They were asking questions, they were learning the rules, they were teaching each other, and creating this dynamic. and learning new mechanics and new ways to have fun and to work with each other. And so that leads me to what I think board games could be used for beyond entertainment, and also be used as a communicative art. Board games have the potential to be used in academic circles, to be used in presentations, to show mechanics and to teach new rules and ways of dealing with things. You could have board games based on mathematics, based on English and history. You can have board games based on how to use a computer. All these different aspects can allow people to come and tactfully learn things, and then also we can push board games to be used in all different aspects. So ultimately, board games and tabletop games offer enhancements of emotional, mental, physical learning, development, communication skills that should be further experienced and expanded upon beyond entertainment, and beyond the stereotype of what board games might be, and to reach deeper into society and to be used for more creative ways. There's a medium here that has much potential, and I believe it should be acted upon and should be embraced in many different aspects. And so this is the purpose of board games as a communicative art.